Today's guest
My
is a man
headphones
whose
on, I can-
mission is as profound as his journey. Meet Tim Thomas, a former Special Forces operator turned wellness visionary whose work is transforming the lives of veterans and everyday people alike. With over a decade immersed in the front line of veteran mental health recovery, Tim has created some of Australia's most impactful programs, raising over $1 million, 0 cents, for groundbreaking organizations like the Gallipoli Medical Research Foundation and the Queensland Brain Institute. His mission to deliver not just inspiration, but tangible, life-enhancing strategies that stick with you long after the episode ends. Tim brings an unmatched combination of motivational storytelling, scientific insight, and practical tools for personal transformation. From mastering the science of high-quality sleep to breaking through fear, rebuilding resilience, and using breathwork to destroy stress, Tim's insights don't just inform, they ignite. But what sets him apart most is his belief in the power of connection to self, to community, and to purpose. Whether you're battling burnout, stuck in survival mode, or simply seeking deeper clarity in life, Tim is here to guide you back to balance. So get ready for a powerful conversation filled with wisdom, warmth, and real-world tools. This is more than a podcast. This is the start of a transformation. Hey, how's it going, Tim?
Great to be here, Double D.
Yeah, man. When we linked up, I knew this was going to be a good episode. I love having conversations with other warriors from across the oceans, and you just learn so much. You know, when you're on ground, you don't really get the opportunity to talk and really learn about each other. And since I've started podcasting, I've had several on, and I always learn something. So I'm always looking forward to it.
Oh, me too, Don, because what I've noticed is the more I look at my service, all those years of getting my ass kicked has now allowed me to sit in a circle with some really special people. And there's this unspoken commonality there. I value my service now because of the conversations I can have, in this space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's something that has gotten better over time. You know, I don't know that we've seen the results dipping down from suicide rates and stuff like that, but I do think people are starting to find more ways to talk and to work through things. And I think that is great. Or maybe it's just because I've gotten involved in this circle and I'm seeing it from, as you said before, from the inside the storm instead of looking from the outside.
Well, you know, when you're in that storm, there's a lot of powerful observations that can take place. And I went through that shitstorm of PTSD. Yep. And I see the veteran community as the tip of the spear for creating healing through the rest of the community. Because the thing about veterans, they're humans, but their symptoms are often far more acute and long-standing. So they've got no time for bullshit that doesn't work. They got no time for placebo effects. They're at rock bottom. They need something that works right frickin' now. And if you actually understand that, it's amazing how little you need to help somebody start their healing journey. And, you know, conversations like this, the powerful thing about this is we get to break the isolation some people are in.
Yeah.
And this is what I've discovered. And this one discovery helped me achieve a lifetime goal. My lifetime goal was saving 40 veteran lives from suicide. I didn't care if it took the rest of my life. That was achieved within 12 months because I saw this one thing, and that was we can handle pain, but pain will get to a certain duration or intensity where that pain transforms into loneliness, isolation. I'm the only guy going through this. And in this place, that's like the worst place of disconnect. You and if you want to flip it into the opposite, like when we were serving, we had people around us and we're really tight. We were super powerful. Didn't matter the pain. We were all focused together because we had each other's back. So if you want to flip that in reverse, when you're feeling all alone, isolated, this pain, you can't speak to it. You could have the best psychologist, psychiatrist, healing art forms in front of you. You don't know who to trust because you're the only one that's got your back, and if I'm the only one that's got my back, if I drop my guard for a second, something bad's going to happen. So I'm not sleeping. So we just found if we broke isolation through gentle conversation, and you'd see these guys, their jaws would pop open. They go, and they'd say words like, "Fuck, I thought I was the only one," and boom, that was the first part. And then getting them out of fatigue. And so provided you broke the isolation, got them out of fatigue, they would just naturally go to where they were supposed to go next.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that's the power we all have, the ability to speak to what we've gone through. Now, we're speaking about it in the veteran space, but this could be anyone. This could be breast cancer. This could be harassment in the workplace. Whatever you've gone through, you might not think you're special, but I bet you've been through some shit. And it's our job to turn that shit into fertilizer, because no one wants to deal with shit, and the stinkiest shit actually makes the best fertilizer. You know what I mean?
I never thought of it that way, but that is a great analogy. And that's where podcasting came in for me. This show has been going on now. I think I'm on year 3 or 4. I've lost track, but at the end of the day, this started out because we had some soldiers that committed suicide. And so it was really more of a Facebook Live type thing. And it was really just for the soldiers that we served with, just to check in on them and get them to come on and talk and so forth. And by the end of the season, I discovered I was starting to feel better. I was talking about things that I didn't normally talk about. And since then, I just kept the show going. It started out literally as my therapy. And I didn't care if one person watched the show or 10 million. And I still don't. It's about, getting people to talk and tell their story and educate people. And I think that's the most important part to this whole process. It is it's hard to reach people nowadays, and especially a veteran that's isolating and not actively looking anymore.
Yeah, we tend to have this idea, and people in general, but veterans, it kind of gets drilled into you as a lifestyle that if you ask for help, that means you're weak. And if you're weak, you let the team down. And I'll die before I let the team down. So we actually think we're doing other people a favor by not speaking to the crap that's going on in our own lives.
Yeah.
But, whether you speak to it or not, the way I describe it to someone who's seeking healing, if you saw me in the gym and I was lifting a bit lighter than you wouldn't call me weak, would you? No, because you see me in the gym and I've got a desire to strengthen myself. Okay. So when I go to the men's group, when I go to the psychiatrist, it's my desire to become stronger, not just my, bench press, but every part of me. So we have to start sort of changing the narrative around, I don't like using the word getting help. I say getting strength, or removing a blockage, because I kind of think we're naturally energetic as human beings, but in the state we're in and the sort of sentient mind that we have, we tend to accumulate these blockages that we don't even know we've accumulated. And that can, happen as a past hurt or unforgiveness or something we're worried about in our future. All these things sort of take from the moment. And one thing I learned in Afghanistan was fear is relative to how much you're hanging on to. Okay. So before I left, I was shit scared because I thought I was going to die. But then I'm like, okay, I'm going to die. I'm good with it. Got some really good insurance for the family. I got 2 kids. And I'm like, right, I'm good for it. And when I was in that place of complete let go, I actually enjoyed myself. And I had some of my fellow operators going, Tim, you're not supposed to be enjoying yourself so much. Right. I was like fully in the moment. But then the worst thing happened. We had this last job we had to do. It was just kicking a few doors. It wasn't a big thing. wasn't like a really hot thing, but it was a thing, right? And before we step off, I'm like, oh, looks like I'm going to survive this. Oh, it'd be really nice to see the family again and take them on holidays. And then boom, this thing, like the fear grabbed me. Like, I'm like, holy shit, what is going on here? I am terrified because
Yeah.
I wasn't fully in this moment. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm only 50% in this moment, my body, there's a part of me that knows if you're only 50%, the likelihood of something bad happening is really high, you know? And you know, we love being right. So if something bad did happen, I'd be telling myself, yeah, you're right, Tim, something bad did happen. You're freaking psychic. No, I was trying to edit the situation to make me right. So yeah, when I realized that, my daily physical exercise meditations is about letting go of things and not trying to hold on to stuff so much.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we are naturally energetic. I've observed, but we're as energized to the blockages we're hanging on to, and unfortunately, a lot of time we don't even know we're hanging on to the blockages because it's just kind of normal, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it was season 2, end of season 2. I always had this thought in the back of my mind. You know, I wondered, you know, how PTSD attacked soldiers, right? And then I started podcasting, and I discovered it wasn't just soldiers. You know, people with sexual assault. It was just a reaction, and it made me wonder. You know, well, is it just an American thing? And I had a guest on from England, and he talked about his mental health podcast, and I said, "Oh, you got a mental health podcast?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "We've just got too many soldiers killing themselves," and it hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, like holy crap! It's not just here; it's everywhere. And then it started making me wonder. I wonder if the guys that I was shooting at and the guys that we were fighting, I wonder if they're having you know, PTSD, because I've accepted now it's a human reaction to a bad situation. That's what it is. It's an illness. You know, nothing more, nothing less. We all have a lot of the same symptoms, maybe different triggers and different reactions, but for the most part, the trajectory and the course to healing is usually about the same path.
Yeah, you're right, and it doesn't matter the timeline.
No.
Vietnam veterans were getting the same sort of bouncing ball behavior as Afghan veterans. It was just eerie to see a Vietnam veteran drop his jaw listening to this 20-year-old Afghan veteran going, "You've just spoken to my life," you know. And this is what I've observed. Healing happens really quickly when you understand the base problem.
Yeah.
And with us blokes especially, there's words we want to speak, but we can't, and they become like rocks around our heart, and it's really hard to feel.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to have to drink half a carton of grog before I could speak to my then wife. I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive future. And that ex-wife thing tends to have too much negative attached to it. So I wanted a, you know, really clean start. And you know, thank goodness it is. But what I'm getting at here is once you understand that you have the power to dissolve the rocks around someone else's heart so they can feel again.
Yeah.
And it's not in the weapons we're qualified in. You know, you and me, we've probably got 6 pages of weapons that we can deal with. But the most powerful thing on this planet is not a weapon, as I've experienced it. It is a conversation, like authenticity. You know, you talked about it's hard to reach people. Yes, it is, because there's so many inauthentic voices out there that aren't getting people where they live. So they tend to become callous.
Yeah.
So if you can have a genuine, no shit, open, authentic, sincere conversation in that resonant space of, you know, people feel safe. People feel somehow strangely powerful as well. It almost doesn't matter what's blah, blah, blahing. It's the space and energy that's shared. And that is where this rapid unfolding of anything that's blocking you usually happens, in my experience. You know, super, super powerful. And how much does it cost us? To have a genuine conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
Nothing really, but you can see the cost of not having those authentic conversations showing up in the mental health crisis, the overeating crisis, the suicide crisis, all these things happening because at a very deep level, people are feeling alone and isolated.
Yeah. No, you are 100% right. And I think some of the stuff that we do with those rocks that you're talking about is we think that by holding those in, we're protecting other people. Just like you said before, when I wrote a book, it started out more as a document that I was going to give to my wife and kids, because after I had gotten help and realized the problems, I was the reason why they couldn't help me. It wasn't them. It was I never told them. I never talked to them. I always said, no, everything's fine. I'd have bad dreams. My wife would ask me what they were, and I would tell her I don't remember, which was just a straight lie. And it was me telling myself that I'm protecting them. This is stuff that they don't need to see. But then when I'm going through this, I have resentment towards them because they don't understand what I'm going through. And I think there's that happy medium, if you can have a open conversation with your partner. It doesn't mean you have to tell your kids everything that you've seen and what's going on. But if you can have an open conversation with your significant other, then at the end of the day, I think some of the problems that we put ourselves in, the excessive drinking, the gambling, the any of the other vices that are out there may become lightened, and you may not have near as far out of that hole that you have to climb. And I think it's important that people, like you said, have that conversation.
And also what you spoke to about not speaking to it, we have to understand that as men, we see ourselves as the physical boundary holder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I'm quite willing, to suffer and die before anything befalls my loved ones.
Yep.
Okay. And then we start seeing, which is quite strange for us, the pain that our loved ones could experience could actually be inside of us. And I've got to protect them from me, and this is where crap gets crazy. Like, I love my loved ones. How can I be the source of their pain? And this is where shit gets dark really quick. And I've got to speak to this, because when you're in that state for too long, you're not sleeping, you're alone and isolated, your energy levels are next to nothing.
Yep.
And at some point, you start looking into the future. And this is me breaking down how my experience of suicide happens. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sharing this with somebody you care about might actually do a lot of good to them. So pay close attention. This is something that I used, and it had great effect every time in people with extreme circumstances. So the conversation, like I said, feeling alone and isolated, fatigued, people start looking into the future. And they're telling the truth when they honestly say, if I look into the future, I can't see anything changing. Because what I'm seeing right now is I'm in pain.
Yep.
I'm causing the people I care about pain. And looking into the future, that ain't going to change. So here's a great idea. Let's end the pain. I'm going to end the pain to me. I'm going to end the pain to you. I'm going to actually be doing everyone a favor. The world's better off without me.
Yeah.
Fuck me if that's not the most dangerous statement, and it's at that point you have to understand that, okay, and this is, I've told guys this, if you've chosen to kill yourself, essentially no one can stop you, right? But do not think that you removing yourself from this situation is in any way going to make the pain less. In fact, if you kill yourself right now, it's going to times by about 10,000 all the pain to everyone who knows you.
Yep.
And then that's sort of like, oh, fuck. Okay. Yes, no, that makes sense, but then obviously you can't leave it there. That is but people in that dark space, they need to have someone else speaking those words around their heart. And that conversation alone has broken a lot of isolation, because this is what happens when the human mind sees this position as untenable. We gather data to make it seem that our suicide is actually the best thing for everybody.
Yeah, and not to mention not just the pain, but the guilt that people that are living with keep, like, why didn't I see this? I could have stopped this. You know, it you just made it worse. You've taken the pain that they already had and multiplied it, and then added guilt on top of it. And it's hard to break a cycle like that. Yeah, absolutely, man. It is it's a huge problem in the world. Not, like I said, not just the military, and it doesn't help. With all the social media, I still to this day remember when I had my trucking company, and I hadn't gotten help yet, and I'm listening to the news, and I find myself just gravitating to all this negativity and holding it on, and then I'm taking it out on other people that have different beliefs, and it changes you, and it just makes it that much harder to dig out, because part of the healing process is taking responsibility for the things that you did, and you've got to go back and mend those fences and everything else. Not that it's not understandable why what happened, but it's still something that you did, and it's still something that you have to close that gap. Otherwise, you're going to hold on to it, for the rest of your life.
Well, Don, I couldn't agree more. And the biggest flip in my recovery thought space was realizing that my dumb, unresolved shit doesn't stop in the grave with me.
Right.
Okay. It pays forward to my kids.
Yep.
Hell, it pays forward in some way to everyone I meet.
Yep.
Okay. Until we go, you know what? This stops here with me.
Yep.
And when you get to that headspace, often if you ask somebody, oh, do you need help? They're like, no, I don't need help. Do you want to help others? Yeah, I want to help others. So one thing that is really helpful to see is, in this world of very easily accessed negativity, there is a genuine vacuum for genuine and authentic words and presence and energy.
Yeah.
Okay. And when people get it, the old saying, the truth will set you free. There's something that is so liberating. And the problem with mainstream media, social media, AI, is they all come under the umbrella of disconnection from your own skin. The second you're focused out there, the second you've disconnected from your own skin. So I believe, just like we fought for the boundaries of our country, because, a country should be in control of their borders, so should we be in charge with the sovereign power underneath our skin and know those resources. If you don't know the resources you've got underneath your own skin and you don't know how to access them, it's a bit like a country that doesn't know its own resources. Some other country is going to come in and take it, and you're not even going to know what you're missing. So my thing that I've done with veterans, and I've found it works across the board, is getting people to reconnect to the power inside of their own skin. And breath, for me, is the quickest way to transmute all that shit into fertilizer, because you're actually connecting back into the power underneath your own skin.
Yeah.
So I really hear you when you say, when you're going through stuff, there's a lot of stuff out there that loves keeping you off-centered and off-balanced.
Yep.
In fact, there's a whole economy based on us not knowing the sovereignty of our own skin. If we don't know how to generate our own energy, there's plenty of energy drinks, there's plenty of coffees, there's plenty of pills. If we don't know how to go to sleep at night, I lost 6 years of my life to pills. When I said I couldn't sleep to a doctor, can't get that time back. But I didn't know breath work was something that could, alkalize my neural pathways, bring healing to my body. All these things that, if you don't know about, the outside world has an economy based on it.
Yeah. I mean, until coming across you, I never really thought much about it. I just kind of wrapped everything up with breath work, meditation, and yeah, it works. Maybe it does. No, who knows? Never did it. And then I started listening to it, but it makes sense because there's a couple things that we have to have, and if we don't have in a short period, we're going to die. And that is air, and that is water. The two largest things that we're made up. If you don't have food, you're still going to live for at least another 20 days, 30 days, or whatever. But without those two things, life stops in minutes. And at the end of the day, it does kind of make sense about how taking in oxygen and air and clearing your mind and those types of things, how it can help. How did you discover it?
Well, firstly, I hear you. A lot of people just are completely ignorant of the power of their own lungs. The metaphor I like to use is, imagine you've got your phone with all its wonderful things it can do, and you think it's a paperweight, so it just keeps the papers down on your desk, and it's got all these features and functions and abilities, and you can have your whole life changed in ways you never even knew if you discovered that paperweight had a whole lot more available. Okay. And this is the exciting place that people go to with their lungs. It's we have these incredible bodies, but we just don't know how wonderful they are, so it brings me much joy having people connect into this stuff that's always been there, and my gateway into that was not a spiritual path at all. I was on the bones of my ass, laying in the dirt of Afghanistan, completely just stuffed. I mean, you go beyond fatigue. You're not sleeping. You're working your ass off. You're sore as hell. Mates are dying. Okay. And I'm like, what's the fucking point? I got 2 cents worth of energy here. There is no point. And then it was like something outside of me said, Tim, if you've only got 2 cents worth of energy, you better invest that wisely. Now in the military, they've realized that at some point breath work helps you focus. So when you're taking a sight picture, they train you to take a deep breath in, exhale, take up the first trigger pressure, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And so I focused on when I'm laying in the dirt next to my long range patrol vehicle. We're outside the wire. This is Afghanistan 2009. I focus on my non-dominant hand. I look at my thumb and I pretend there's like a pinhole in the top of it, and I'm breathing through that pinhole. Okay. And eventually this thing didn't just relax, it turned white with light in my mind's eye, right? I'm like, whoa, it's all white. It's like, the Matrix stuff, and I'm like, cool. And so I said, I'll do that for my pointer finger. I drew it in through my pointer finger, my index finger, my ring, my pinky, and then I pulled it through my whole arm. And I woke up, and instead of having 2 cents worth of energy, I had like $1.50. Wow. I'm like, that's interesting. I don't understand this, but I understand how energy is like money. How you invest, it's how you get it back. And what I encourage people to see is, divide your life into an energy portfolio. There's things that you invest in to get a good return from, both in the heart and the hip. And then there's things that you invest in that can take from you. Right. So my goal for everyone I work with is to be what I call an energetic millionaire. Okay. Because when you're in touch with that abundance, we all get taken from, but there's a big shift thinking, well, someone took $1.50 from me today. That's okay. I'm going to make $1 million tomorrow. That's the position of strength you can put yourself in when you access the sovereign power of your own skin. And this is why I'm super excited about sharing. But in 2009, when I didn't know what it was, I just noticed if I kept investing, I just got more and more energy capital. But then it got to a point where I realized I started seeing things, being aware of things more outside of my own skin. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm in a small team here. And if they're having a shit day, I'm having a shit day. So I've got to generate more than I think I need so I can meet them so they can have a better day. Because even if I'm being selfish, it makes a lot of sense to empower people around you, because who did you want around you when good times turn bad? you know.
You're-
Yeah, and so even if I didn't like these guys, it makes a lot of sense to have them in an empowered, connected state.
Mhm.
And I kind of think that we disagree so easily with people because we can't see that we actually need them. If you don't see the need for somebody,
Yeah.
die in a gutter, I don't care. That's a very disconnected way of being. So I'm pretty thick skinned. I had to go to Afghanistan to realize when you build people up around you, it's actually the best thing for you.
Mhm.
And then I've obviously expanded that. Now I tend to think, this meat bag here, it's actually just a radio. It's not who I am. Who I am is the signal that this body tunes into, and my body rewards me with energy the more I tune into that. And that's a case of doing actions that align me with who I am, but also letting go of things that aren't aligned with who I am. And it's amazing how quickly people tune in once they get that frequency, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But back in 2009, I didn't know breathwork was a thing. I just knew it gave me more energy to do what I did. And so I thought, I was a private. I was told to do what everyone else said, right? So how could I empower and strengthen others? So I thought, well, what do I have? I have a bunch of coffee. I could make coffee for the guys.
Mhm.
But this is when I was on the path where all our suffering we cause ourselves, because I knew, and the things that are in the way of what we really want, we're the ones blocking it. Because what I knew was that yes, I could bring coffee to other guys and that would strengthen them and my survivability would go up. But I knew if I did that, I'd be called the brew bitch. Okay. A lot of insecure alpha males in the special forces. Hey, brew bitch. Because if you do something, if you do an act of service to an insecure alpha male, they automatically think you're below me. You're a servant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck that. I've worked too hard to be here. Right. And so I was wanting to do this act of service, but there was this part of me going, no. Right. And then I had to see this thing. I said, if this is where I want to get to, I need a bridge to get to there. And so I thought, well, if I drop my ego, imagine doing an action and not giving a shit about what anyone else thought, right? And then it became like a bridge. So I called it the ego bridge. The second you drop it is the second you actually get access to what you want to get to. And I'm like, well, yeah, if I could act in a way where I didn't care what other people thought, yeah, that would be really freeing, right?
Yeah.
And what the fuck were we doing over there in the first place? We're fighting for freedom, right? And here I was, shackled in my own brain. And so that's what I did, Don. I brought coffee. I was called the brew bitch, but you get an opportunity to see what happens when you're not there because everyone's living so close, right? These guys, instead of arguing in a team, because everyone's tired, everyone's shitty, everyone's often turning on each other. When they're not turning on the enemy, they're turning on each other.
Yep.
And you could see they'd take the sip of coffee and then they'd take a rapid sip again because I'd realize it's good coffee. And then everything would just stop. You'd see these shoulders just relaxing down. You'd see these guys straighten up and take a really deep breath. And that's fascinating. Automatically they took a deep breath and changed their structure. And for a second, they weren't in the war zone of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They were in a coffee shop back home. And I'm like, something's happening here. I saw the power of servanthood to another human being. And I confused it with servitude.
Yep.
And so it was from that place that I actually had a coffee shop for a while there, but now I've created like this breathwork buffet for people to access when they can self-restore, become that energetic millionaire they were born to be by accessing their own sovereign power.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I never really thought about this until we had this conversation. Have you ever heard of runner's high?
Yeah.
So you know, I loved running when I was in the military. That was the one thing I was very good at. And you would get to that point during your running, mile 3, 4, whatever, and it just became euphoric, and you would get that burst, and I want to get to the finish line, and ain't nobody going to beat me, and you just get that, and I never knew what caused it, but I think I do now, and it's because by the time you get to that point, you're out of breath, and you're taking as many deep breaths as you can, and you're constantly trying to breathe and take in as much oxygen to get you to that finish line. And yeah, it makes complete sense, man. Wow. I never thought about it until just now.
No, I can see you had a bit of a download there, and that's super cool. And I might offer this, not just you, but people listening. If what we're saying makes sense in a very deep way, it's because you already knew it.
Yeah.
You had that information there, but when someone else articulates it, you're like, oh, now I see the pattern. Before It was just a bunch of stars in the sky. Now I see, Taurus or whatever. And I can navigate that, use that as a reference point to get to where I want to get to. And if I could speak to that runner's high, the word I use is totality. Okay. Because you and me, we all own a body, right?
Yep.
And one thing I do with high school students is I'll give away a book of mine if they can guess my weight. Okay. And whoever gets the weight right, they get a book. And I say, right, we're in metric system here, 88 kilos, which would be, 190 pounds over there. This 190 pounds is a measurement of mass. Okay. And because that's a measurement of mass, it's stuck here in this moment at, in my time space, 9:38 a.m.
Yep.
But there's something else we all own that's very much a part of us. And eventually someone guesses, oh, we all own a mind. Now, I've got another book for the person who can guess the weight of my mind. Let me just put it on the scales. All right. No. Okay. So you can't measure your mind because your mind doesn't contain mass. An obvious but important statement, because what you're talking about with your runner's high, I would put it to you before you started that race, your 190 pounds or so was at that moment, and your mind could have been in the past somewhere, could have been worried about something in the future.
Yeah.
And your mind has a processing power. It's not omnipotent. Let's just say it's got 100%. And if there's something in my past that's bothering me, that can be taken up 30%. If there's something in the future I'm worried about, that can be taken up 30%. So that puts me down to 40%. And life is pretty bloody hard at 40%.
Yeah.
Because life is hard at 40%. All right. And I can create all sorts of stories and reasons and blames. But at the end of the day, me at 40%, my life is harder. But when I'm at, and this is what I tell guys, getting closure with the past and getting healing isn't about sitting on a mountaintop drinking tofu. I mean, it's cool if you want to do it. Fuck, great, right? But to me, it's about kicking ass and bringing your power into this moment.
Yeah.
Because a man's generosity and happiness is relative to how powerful he feels. If you want to see an unhappy, stingy bloke, it's because he doesn't feel powerful, And so getting all that processing power back in our moment, that's when us blokes especially, we become generous, we become happy. And dare I say, we create peace when we're in that totality. And that runner's high gave you a small insight for what it is to have your mind fully in that moment and the body fully in that moment.
Yeah. No, you were 100% right. And now it makes complete sense, because if you enjoy running, then you look forward to getting to that moment. And I never knew how to get there. It just happened. And sometimes I could run for 8 miles and it never happened. And other times it happened after mile 2, and it was just so random. But I think, like you said, it was, being able to let other stuff go. So if I was running in a peaceful state, it became easier to get into that moment, compared to, like you said, if I was worried about the kids' schooling or money or bills with the wife, or getting ready for a deployment or whatever. Now I'm blocking myself from getting to that state of mind. And man, I wish I knew then what I knew now.
Oh, don't we all? Oh my gosh. But then life wouldn't be as perfect, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let me ask you this, right? You worked in high pressure, high stakes environments. Uh, what has fear taught you with
Oh,
this?
great question. Great question. First, we need to dissolve some of the assumptions people have around fear. Fear has a goal, okay? And fear's ultimate goal isn't to scare you, it's actually to immobilize you. Okay, to stop you from even trying, to make you think it's impossible. Okay, so if you understand that the ultimate goal of fear is to immobilize you, what's the opposite of fear? It ain't love. It's
Yeah.
action. Taking action dispels fear. Okay, think of a footprint your size filled with water, and fear fills that footprint. But the second you take action, boom, it goes.
Yep.
Okay, now that's a good theory, right?
Yep.
And I know it works, but what you need to understand is your own what's going on underneath your own skin that stops you. Okay, because here's what fear does. Think of your mind like a garden. Whatever you water grows.
Yep.
Okay. And let's say I've been feeding the weeds of stress and fear. I've been watching the mainstream news. I've been doom scrolling. I've been drinking. Those parts of our mind, they don't just grow and start taking over. Eyeballs pop out of them. No shit. Eyeballs pop out of them. They become sentient. They become aware of the things that you do that feed them.
Yep.
And they become very aware of the things that you do that starve them. Okay. So if you were to do an empowering activity, their survival's on the line and they know it. So they try and ambush you with the fear of the fear which leads to immobilization. Because if they can get you doing nothing, they're getting your resources. Okay, so what does this look like in real life? Let's say we want to go and do some exercise, or some sort of physical discipline, or something we know we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Before you get your running shoes on, there's a part of you going, you know what? Let's not do this. Okay, let's do this later. Isn't there something better to do? Look at your phone. All of a sudden, all these distractions start happening because if they can stretch that moment out, they can feed themselves. And all of a sudden, it gets super hard to get over that hill because they know if you were to get to that empowered state, they're dead. They're gone. So they're not just fighting for convenience. They're fighting for survival. So you have to understand there's a part of your head that fights for its survival before you become empowered, because once you become empowered, the lights are on, darkness gone, they're dead. Okay, so they scream the loudest before they go. So a wise person sees that when you've got heavy resistance to doing something, that's the best indicator that you're about to find something powerful.
Yeah.
Absolute, because if you've got an enemy wanting to hurt you and harm you, they will say, go through door 1. That's where you need to go. Okay. Because they know the real reward is through door 2. And this is what our own mind will do before we do something empowering. Let's do it later. Let's not do it now. But if you can actually see that as you know what? I'm getting a lot of resistance to doing some form of physical discipline right now. That really means I really, really need it. But like I said, this is once you can be aware of that, all of a sudden you can use it as fuel to drive you forward. Yeah. So that's what ultimately I talked about it in sort of a roundabout way, but I hope that answers the question around fear. Yeah.
No, absolutely. It absolutely does. And I think, kind of, I try to put some of this stuff in my life's perspective, right? And you're absolutely right. I never thought of it as weeds in my head, but I just lost my mom here in early April, and it was a challenge to get out of bed for a while. I got to do the dishes, and I would just look at them like I'm not doing them, and finally it just it took time, and I would say, okay, you know what, I'm going to accomplish one thing today. Let's do one thing. And then the next day got a little bit easier, and I was able to accomplish a couple things. And a couple months later, I ain't gonna say I'm back to 100% normal, but I'm living a normal life again. I'm accomplishing the things that need to be done, and I feel better about myself for doing it. And it makes sense that that's exactly what it was. It was depression seeping in and wanting to stay in my head, and it didn't want any lights to be turned on, and it made it hard.
And there's no holding ground in this.
Yeah.
You're either sliding down with velocity or you're ascending with velocity.
Yep.
And a wise person knows there's no actual choice in this. If I don't choose to invest in myself at the start of the day, whatever that looks like, then I'm going to be protecting what's left.
Yeah.
If I don't start my day off investing in myself, turning that 2 cents into $1.50, I'm going to be protecting that 2 cents. And that's it. That ironically, that wastes more energy when you're trying to live in that protective state, because then we seek comfort. And again, remember what I said about the world loving it when we can't generate our own energy? I was a guy that used to drink a lot of alcohol. I was a guy that took a lot of pills, always looking for that thing outside of myself.
Yeah.
So it's a credit to you, my friend, coming out of that one thing at a time, that self-talk to override, the stress weeds that were getting plenty of resources from, a sudden impact of the death of a loved one. I get it. I get it.
Yeah, it really does, and you're the part that makes it hard, right? We always say, sometimes you can't see injuries. Mental health is one of those things. The guy parks in a handicapped spot and he walks and looks just perfectly fine, but it doesn't mean that he is. Well, let's take that in the aspect of now I have to fix these problems that I can't see. And I don't understand what actions is watering these weeds versus what actions are actually spraying weed killer. And that's where it becomes difficult.
Yep. Because it's quite a heavy badge to wear, the sheriff's badge around town, because that's right, that's wrong. The problem is, though, like 10 to 20% of the time, it actually comes in handy, like wearing that sheriff's badge. Oh, I'm so goodness you're here. And it meant a lot to somebody for you to actually, be present enough to physically intervene, but 80, 90% of the time, it is just screwing you over, screwing your sleep, destroying your hormone levels. And I don't want to step over the death of your mum this year, because something came to me before I almost went insane with grief, and I feel like it kind of gives me goosebumps. I feel like it came through me, so I can then help others move through that space and see it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a little poem called "The Last Gift." If you're happy to, I'm happy to share it. If it doesn't serve you, I'm sure you can cut it out. But I'd love to share this with you now, if that's okay. Let me just dig it up from. Because I'd lost more brothers than I can count on both hands, and then this thing came through me, and it gave me peace in such a way where I'm like, you know what, I want to share this with others, and help them, get through, see what's actually going on when a loved one passes. So I'm just gonna bring this over here.
I will tell you, I found, the one thing I found, and I'm speaking as a veteran, it's different. It's not the same when you're watching somebody slowly deteriorate and pass away than it is combat. And before my mom passed, I thought, well, I'm going to be able to handle this. I'm a pretty experienced person when it comes to death. I've been around quite a bit of it, and it'll be okay. And I discovered this has probably bothered me more than anything. And it's just because of how it happens, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes our body surprises us how it responds to certain things.
Yeah.
It's got its own way of doing things that is hard to understand.
Yeah.
And those deep parts that were stirred by their passing is actually something that came through me was the reason for that. So I'm just going to share what I share. I hope it lands. If it doesn't, no big deal. But I'll just share with you and your listeners. And
Okay.
so this poem is called "The Last Gift," and it goes like this. The pain we feel when a loved one passes is their last gift to us. Let me explain. When we first know of their passing, it seems like an unbearable weight has been placed on our soul. This experience is not to be rushed through. However, these three things really help: tears, time, and talking. These three elements never completely rid us of the pain, although they do help transform and shift that unbearable burden of grief from a crushing weight to personal ballast. Just like ballast in a ship helps the ship know it's up from its down, this personal ballast affects us in a very similar way. It helps us know our own up from our down, our own right and wrong, what is true to us and what is not true to us, what is important in our lives and what is not important in our lives. So, question, if that loved one was looking down on your life right now, what would put a smile on their face? Would they smile if you were living an unhappy life, disconnected from what makes you uniquely you?
No.
Of course not. Our departed loved ones want us to live connected to what we know is truly, truly important to us. They know that our abundance only follows us when we have unburdened hearts. You know, following the desires from the deepest parts of us, the same parts that were stirred by their passing. The pain of their passing is their last gift our loved ones give us. They give us this pain to reteach us, the living, how to realign and then how to truly live. Now, I do believe we can honor their gift and we can still make them smile by getting rid of all those things that just aren't serving us. Because we can still make them smile. We can still warm their hearts.
Yeah. You know, that is so true. And I definitely will not be cutting that out. That's something that not just me, but a lot of people need to hear. And it is hard to when you don't know how to help, you just feel helpless, you know. And I think that's where the power of volunteering and helping out, even when you're feeling down, has some therapy help in it as well. You know, I think it's important that people do understand that gone doesn't mean gone. It just means physically not here. And I think, you know, I've had too many guests on my show over these years that have said the same things. And I've just kind of gotten to the point where I believe it. I'm a big believer in energy around us, right? You know, you can call it God, you can call it energy, you can call it whatever you want, but there is something else. And it's how you can feel. It's your body gets these instincts, and that instinct comes from something that you didn't see. You know, it's just energy. And I think I find happiness in knowing that, you know, my mom is still around and she's still watching what's going on and the things that's going and waiting for one day for me to be in that situation and being able to do the same thing. You know, I think it's I think it gives you hope when you think of things that way. So I appreciate you sharing that, Tim.
Well, thanks for holding the space, and I hope it didn't just serve you, but those people listening. I don't think I've ever shared that one before on a podcast.
Well, I'm going to make sure I cut it out, and because I always add a blog post with the episode, but I'm going to specifically cut this section out and put it with the blog post, because I think it can reach more people.
Yeah, anyone that, I mean, yeah, you could easily hashtag that as, you know, struggling with grief or whatever it is, you know, to you know, accelerate their journey through that space of isolation. Because it's not the pain that is the problem, it's the isolation it causes. And this is where the strongest power we have as humans is to break that isolation. And it really doesn't take much. It just takes you being completely authentic about often some of the shittiest things you've ever been through. You know? Yeah.
Wading through the fertilizer.
You got it.
That's it, man. Well, you've done so much for research and everything else. I mean, you've raised over $1 million for research. What is it that you're hoping that the research can get answers to?
Okay, right. So the good thing about research is it's the classic teach them how to fish type scenario. There's an ongoing effect. So you know, a lot of people want to help others, and then what they do is, okay, if I want to do a bigger lot of help, I'm going to make a bigger lot of money, and I'm going to give it to a bigger lot of charity. Okay, and what saddened me is in Australia, if you give $1 to a charity, 97 cents they can use for their own, logistics and all that. And I get it. They got to support or whatever, right? So I tend to lean into things that research done right, but also creating tools that can be used. Okay, because that research isn't just relevant now, and it can't just be in, data can be wrapped around the planet, but it can also be paid forward in time.
Yeah.
So if I was to make a ripple in time that would create the biggest amount of impact, my money goes on research that I've done my own research on. I know they're doing, the right thing with their funds, and they're creating tools, not just a piece of paper saying, hey, we thought this was true and now it is true. And I'm published. No, I work with people that create tools to actually solve problems. So with the work I've done with veterans, we've created like a world's first transition tool for Australian soldiers to understand what's going on in that space, and also training doctors to understand veterans when they come in as well. So, and not just giving people information, but presenting it in such a way where they understand it, meeting them at their level, speaking the words that they normally use. So what I do with academia is I'll hear the intent of what they want to create. I'll translate it into, defense speak, and then I'll have it presented in such a way where the likelihood of uptake is really, really high. And also integrating the participant as part of it, part of the process. So once we collected all this data from all these participants, we had regular barbecues, catching everyone up on the work that we were doing. So it gave them a sense of community. So it's not like, most research foundations operate like an alien spacecraft. Come in, probe your deeper secrets, and then bugger off without even buying you a cup of coffee. All right. So I'm like, we've got to, if we're really going to do this properly, we have to speak their language, meet them as they are, forget the paper, in-person interviews. Okay. And these guys, to their credit, did over 500 interviews that went for, 1 to 2 hours each to get all of the picture, not just the tick and flick. And then, okay, now we've got all these ticks and flicks. So they were willing to do the work, and I was willing to work with them to create this. And I was also willing to help raise money for the cause. Initially, the guy I started with was a guy called Brian Davies. The goal was $50,000. late last year, we did our third trek, and we raised over 1.1 million. So it was just incredible, the generosity in that space, but also assuring donors that their money was being invested, not just, here's a fish. This stuff is going to outlive us, if you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. And I think that's extremely important. I got one more question, and I know all of us, we can think back as veterans, a time where, we were forced to take a big bite out of a shit sandwich, and it was just a hot mess and a day that went bad. If you could go back in time to that day, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, good question. The funny thing is, literally just this morning, every morning, the only way I can see the sunrise is to sit on my roof. Okay. And that's when I do my breath work, as I look at the sun first break the horizon, because there's a frequency of light when the sun breaks the horizon. When it goes through your retina, it synchronizes all your internal clocks, all your circadian rhythms. Okay. And if you think of, when we served, we had to sync up our watches to the second of the guy giving the orders, because if someone was 30 seconds out, then there was a massive impact. So if you ever had the experience of trying to go to sleep at the end of the day, but there's a part of you still running around the show, that's because you haven't synced up. So one of the easiest tips for a good night's sleep is seeing those sunrise colors, getting all your internal clocks synchronized, and doing a bit of breath work with it. Okay. So point I'm trying to make here is as I was doing that, literally this morning, maybe 10 foot above my current position, I went back through time, and I started just loving on and surrounding with light, a big bubble of light, my hurt 7-year-old self, 12-year-old, and going through my military career, so, and it was strange going back in my mind, loving all those different versions of me. It's like it kind of healed me in the moment, because I didn't know how much of my own head was stuck back in that past until kind of, love, truth set me free.
Yeah.
So I would tell myself now, with what I know, that this moment is perfect. It is perfect. You can't see the perfection, but you will. Something is happening here that's going to take you beyond your own measure of strength, outside of your comfort zone. It's going to destroy everything you think is really important. Because I can see in that moment, God, universe, intelligence, put skin in the game to give me a heart of service to others, and gave me the resonance to speak to people in that place of pain and isolation, for them to start thinking, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a better way.
Yeah, I think that is probably the best answer I've ever gotten to that question. I think that would be some amazing advice.
Well, I'm not kidding. That literally happened about an hour and a half ago, and it was this. I obviously believe there's people listening to this that did need to hear this, because that wasn't just me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Tim, I'm going to bring you forward and give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can learn a little bit more about what you're doing, and where they can find you, and all your socials and all that.
Sure. Okay. So I love finding out what people really, really like and moving them towards it with velocity. Okay. And everyone gets lost in the performance and work harder. That's conscious working hours. I love showing people the awesome regenerative power of their own body through sleep and breath. Okay. So breath work in bed, you could simply get your phone, type in that in your app store, and you just tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and we take care of the rest. Breath work is going to turn your bed into a cloud, make your mind feel amazing. And even if you do get to sleep okay, having that oxygen boost before you go to sleep is a really, really good idea. But getting out of bed, a lot of people feel like they've got a lot of stuck energy and they're tired, but starting your day with breath and connection and removing that stuck energy, absolute game changer. So I've made it really simple. Breathwork in bed on your app store. If you want to reach out to me personally, just reach out via my socials. I'm across all of them. And I look forward to bringing that which you really want. Look, I can't do what, here's my joy, right? I can't do what you do, but if I can improve the quality of your rest and inner connection, you're going to do what you do even better. Your gifts being brought into the world even better.
Absolutely. And I will, you will be having another download tonight, because I will, as soon as we get off here, download the app and check it out. So Tim, I had a great conversation, and this episode could probably go for another 2 hours.
Let's do number 2 now. Let's roll on. Let's go. Come on, man. Get some mongrel about you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to throw the exit video out, and if you don't mind holding on for just a second, we'll chit chat for a few minutes.